Hey there, I'm Bernie Miklasz, back again with a bonus edition of The Bernie Show presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. And before I start, a special shout out to our friends at Blue Chew for Men for supporting the show. All right, this is an update on the video I did earlier on STL Sports Central on Mike Shildt's firing in St. Louis and his departure in San Diego, and the very strong connection that one way or another cost him both jobs. And it basically boils down to this, and pardon me for being blunt about it. Mike Shildt can't control his temper. It's gotten the best of him time and time again. That temper was a huge reason for his dismissal. I should say justified dismissal in St. Louis, and that temper overheated so often during Shildt's 2 seasons as the manager of the Padres that it basically damaged relationships. It added an intense amount of stress, and it caused him to burn out and then just say, I'm going home, I'm retiring. If you watch the first video today, I explained the one critical issue in both places was Shildt's harsh treatment of coaches and other support staff that was noticed throughout both organizations. I did my own reporting on this after Shildt got sacked by John Mozeliak at the end of 2021. In my earlier video today, where I reminded, listen, I talked about this at the time, what the problem was. I can't speak for what other media reported at that time about the firing. I know that I got to the truth of the matter. But in my early video today, I passed along some information from baseball columnist John Heyman of MLB Network and New York Post about Shildt in San Diego and how all of his eruptions with Padres coaches and support staff nearly in one instance nearly led to a fist fight between Shildt and a coach. I wanted to add some new information, which is why I'm doing this bonus video. Wanted to add some new info, which is even stronger, that appeared in a comprehensive, well-written, well-reported story turned in by the excellent Kevin Acee, who has covered the Padres for the San Diego Tribune, Union-Tribune, for quite a long time. He's really good. The eye-opening disclosure to me in the story had to do with St. Louis and just how bad it had gotten here for Shildt and people that he worked with, and why his firing, looking back, is like, well, yeah, I certainly can understand it, because it was even worse than I thought, and I reported some things that were pretty spicy about how it all went down. But Kevin Acee, to his credit, he's a hell of a reporter. He took it to a whole higher level. So I'm going to read you some of what Acee wrote, and it's pretty eye-opening. I guess that's the best way to put it. Here's the most glaring part of Acee's story in the San Diego paper, and you can probably Google search it and read it. Anyway, here's the most glaring part. Quote, this is his writing, quote, nearly 20 sources, 12 of them who worked with Shildt on a daily basis during the season, have in recent months characterized Shildt as unyieldingly demanding of his coaching staff and the team's support staff, and as having a tendency to micromanage and possessing a quick temper that is easily triggered by questioning or feedback. Kevin Acee continued, quote, the issues that surfaced in San Diego were virtually identical to the issues that several league sources said led to Shildt's abrupt dismissal in St. Louis following a 90-win season in 2021 and 3 playoff appearances in 3 years. Quote, the Cardinals have only ever said publicly that Shildt was fired due to philosophical differences. But Acee reported, and this is the good stuff, quote, a half dozen sources, including current and former members of the Cardinals organization, and 2 people who were part of front offices that considered interviewing Shildt in the month after he was fired, said some Cardinals coaches and others threatened to quit if Shildt remained as manager in St. Louis. Shildt even said, I'm not laughing at him, but I give Shildt the credit for acknowledging it when he was asked about, well, this seems kind of the same thing, right? And Shildt acknowledged that the two situations were, quote, eerily similar in the two places I've managed. Okay. So Acee went on to add this. There's so much in this story. He went on to add this. The Padres enlisted people internally to work with Shildt regarding his penchant to snap at colleagues and even superiors who he perceived were questioning him, according to multiple sources. Well, excuse us, Shildt. Anyway, back to what the quote was from Acee. The plan for the offseason was for there to be more discussions and work done regarding his interactions with staff and media. So there was going to be an intervention. The Padres were going to intervene and basically said, look, you can't keep treating people this way. You know, and if he kept treating people this way, the Padres could have gotten in trouble, actually, you know, human resources and all that stuff, right? So they're going to intervene. And yet Shildt doesn't seem to think he was doing anything wrong. In fact, throughout this whole story, he kind of portrays himself as a victim. I don't think there's any doubt about this now. I personally didn't have much doubt, if any, about it when it happened, because I got to the truth of the matter, and I was kind of like, whoa. I think John Mozeliak was absolutely right to fire Shildt, and the stuff was so awful, and it continued in San Diego. I think looking back on it, Mo showed a lot of class by not divulging or leaking the reasons for dismissing Shildt. He was sensitive to the idea that Shildt, you know, would want to manage again. I don't think he wanted to do anything to hurt him in terms of having his career move forward. A lot of managers get fired, but for some of the reasons why he got fired here, might have worked against him getting another job so soon. I don't think Mo wanted to hurt him. The problem here is Shildt's volcanic temper and his belittling and denigration of coaches who were busting their tails for him was really unfortunate. I would even say it's really ridiculous. And I know that I think it reflects very poorly on Mike Shildt. Once again, Mike Shildt was a winning manager. He did a heck of a job. But that doesn't justify his verbal abuse of people who work with him and are trying to please him and are trying to do everything they can to help Mike Shildt lead whatever team he's managing to great success. And I don't see how any organization would tolerate that. And I'm going to pop off again. I really don't give a damn if you hate John Mozeliak or not. This isn't about Mo. This is about Mike Shildt's conduct, all right? This was about a manager consumed by ego and stricken with insecurity and who felt the need to push people around as part of what seems to be a kind of desperate need to flex authority. And that desire for power and control, including Shildt, right before he was fired, trying to give John Mozeliak orders. He was telling Mozeliak, well, this is how it's going to be. This is how we're going to do this, Mo. I mean, every time I replay this in my mind, I'm like, you know, people who care about Shildt, have they done some kind of a wellness check on him? What manager who's been in place in a small time or a short time or even a long time thinks he can call up the guy who gave him the job and a guy who actually gave him every job he had in the Cardinals organization, and all of a sudden he wins, takes the team to playoffs 2 or 3 times. All of a sudden he's going to give the orders around here. That is just cuckoo bananas, man. Anyway, you don't give the baseball, when you're the manager, you don't give the baseball boss orders. Just like the baseball boss, in this case, Mozeliak, he doesn't call up Bill DeWitt or Bill DeWitt III and say, well, here's how it's going to be. This is what we're doing, period. I don't want to hear anymore, right? It's just the stupidity of people who think that somehow that's real world stuff. I don't know. Here are some other samples from Acee's excellent reporting job, and I'm going to just count them down, and everything I read to you will be literally from the story word for word. Okay, number 1. Shildt largely left governing of the clubhouse to players and made it a priority to exhibit patience and deference to them. Oh, yeah, that resonates with me. Acee continued, he was, according to several people, often the opposite with his coaching staff and members of the support staff. Those people said that it was sometimes would happen within a matter of seconds. He would berate a staff member and then walk out in the clubhouse with a smile on his face. Bernie here talking away from the story. That jibes with me too, because in St. Louis, and it's something, yes, I mentioned a lot. I thought Shildt was insecure. I thought he was a really good manager, but I thought he was also insecure. He absolutely feared veteran players. He did everything he could to make the most powerful players happy. The rest of you, good luck. Number 2, back to Kevin Acee. Quote, people all over the organization regularly tuned in to watch Shildt's post-game news conferences. Their curiosity was not so much about the manager's insight into the game as much as what happened when the manager was even questioned. Shildt treated many queries as if they were personal attacks. Even innocuous questions would cause him to lash out, either acting as if the question had no basis or causing him to rail against perceived slights. Bernie here. That resonates with me 100%. I used to make fun of Shildt on my KFNS show because his post-game sessions were just so absurd. I mean, even with the notoriously soft St. Louis sports media offering straightforward questions, not laced with any hostility or criticism, just straightforward question, Shildt would just get really offended. He would get triggered. And why? You're not supposed to question the great man? Number 3, back to Kevin Acee. Their dismay was not, talking about the Padres, their dismay was not just the organization's most forward-facing employee, the only one required to speak publicly hundreds of times each season, came across as defensive and combative. It was, the Padres said, a reflection of how Shildt often conducted himself behind the scenes. Number 4 from Kevin Acee. Quote, many in the organization spoke over the past several months of repeated angry outbursts and what were painted as unproductive and destructive communication tactics. Shildt often made employees feel silly for suggestions or what they deemed helpful information to him, but he then would sometimes complain that they had not prepared him for situations. Now, this went on and on and on, things very similar to this. And Shildt had a ton of comments. Acee gave him a chance to push back on all this and then some, and that's what good reporters do. But much of Shildt's defense on these matters, frankly, were really smug and kind of self-serving. Like one example, what I'm talking about, quote from Shildt, I acknowledge and won't apologize for having high standards. Haughty much? Anyway, here is the worst example. Shildt, quote, to Kevin Acee, one of the reasons I am going to leave is a frustration with the stress and the inability to please everybody. I made a decision to go home because of this, because I'm tired of dealing with it. And Shildt made other similar comments while trying to portray himself, of course, as a victim. You know, after getting fired in St. Louis, I truly believe that Shildt will understand he made some pretty bad mistakes that cost him his dream job. I really believed in him that, listen, he'll regroup. His next job, he'll be great because he will learn from what went wrong in St. Louis. And sometimes all of us need that. We kind of need that failure, self-inflicted failure, and then it makes us finally have a serious and meaningful conversation with ourselves and how we have to change. So it truly saddens me to realize that Mike Shildt still has not learned a damn thing after getting fired in St. Louis and after self-destructing in San Diego. He still doesn't get it. And that's really a shame. Thanks for watching. I just felt compelled because there was even more information, better and more detailed than in the first video I did today, and it's a hot topic, and I thought you would want to know about it if you already, unless you already had, but you still might want to hear my take. So here I am, but I'm going to go away now. Thank you all for watching very much, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the like button under the video. And thanks again to DraftKings and Blue Chew. Until tomorrow, I am Bernie Miklasz. Hello there, I'm Bernie Miklasz, and I want to take a minute to brag about everything that we're doing here on STL Sports Central. But first, if you don't mind, I'm going to tell you a quick story because I think you need to hear it. When this site began a few months ago, whenever it was, right, I was curious to see what I would find here. I love sports content, but I can be a little picky. I want it to be consistent. I want it to be smart. I want it to be fun. I want it to be something I can count on. Not every now and then, but every day if possible. Well, listen, I got all of that and then some. I was simply blown away by the huge amount of content, good content, quality content, a variety of content on this site. Hey, there's Cardinals coverage with Card Central 365, which is there for you every single day, 365 days a year. You're going to stay up to date with a great cast of hosts, my friends that include Brendan Schaefer, Mike Claiborne, Joe Roderick, Stephen Carey, Ryan Fagan, and many more. And that's not all. There's post-game shows after every game. In fact, this is about the Cardinals coverage, but there's post-game shows after every game, any St. Louis sports team, college or pro. It's amazing. And these post-game shows feature the hosts that I've already mentioned, plus in terms of the Cardinals post-games, plus Sarah Daly and Ethan Hannaford. And I'm in the bullpen in case they want to bring the old reliever out so I can holler about something. Hey, long story short, and I wasn't very short, but here's the story. I was so impressed with STL Sports Central, I knew something right away. I wanted to be part of the team, and so I am. Here I am. Please join us all. There's nothing like this in the St. Louis sports market. There is nothing like it in this market. There never has been, and we are breaking that ground. We are changing the way St. Louis sports fans consume their sports content. I'm proud to be on the squad. Thank you, and join us.